Returning guest host Lisa Shorr joins us this week to share her story of using emotional intelligence to keep her MSP strong through the pandemic and discuss news from ID Agent, Sophos, and Lenovo, plus a special guest interview with Sales Gravy's head of training and consulting on Sales EQ. It's ChannelPro Weekly number 212, Ode to Salesman. Hello and welcome to ChannelPro Weekly episode 212. My name is Matt Whitlock, technology editor, online director, and your host of this show for the folks out there like you. And you are the VARs, the MSPs, the IT integrators, the system analysts, the system builders, the systems. You could be a system. Human beings are like a system. Why not, right? The general gist, though, is that if you do technology related things with other businesses, that's kind of the key. Then you're probably in the right place, and we are glad that you are here joining us for this awesome show. And here with us also is the man of the hour, my partner in crime here at ChannelPro, the executive editor, Rich Freeman.
Greetings, Matt, and greetings, audience.
It's great to see your bright, smiley face, Mr. Rich. How are things?
Things are pretty good. The year is picking up speed here. I'm still, working from home. The travel doesn't start until next month, but things are going well. They might be going a little bit better for me right now than you.
Perhaps we'll see how. So what Rich is alluding to is that I was lucky enough to pick up yet another fine cold. See, what a lot of people forget is that before the whole COVID thing and everybody was like, working on like staying inside, there were lots of other colds and illnesses that existed before then, and they still exist. So now with people milling around, I think all of the colds that I didn't get in 2020 and 2021, I'm getting now. Is how that's working. So we'll see how this goes. Pardon me, folks, if you hear me sneeze or cough or blow my nose, I'm going to try to make sure I hit the mute button on that. But awesome. We got a great show ahead, Rich. We got a guest. We're going to get to her in just a minute. I'm super excited that she's back. It's one that I know everybody loves when she's on. But Rich, we've got a lot of things coming up in the months ahead. We're rolling right into February, which means that we are but yet 1 month-ish away from our first live event of the year. Tell us about it.
Yes, yeah, well, and it's first of 6. We will be doing some online only events this year as well, but we have 6 one-day in-person face-to-face events scheduled for 2022, beginning March 9th in Newark, New Jersey. But we are also going to be in Chicago in May, and Dallas in June, Charlotte, North Carolina in the summertime at some point, Washington, D.C. a little bit after that, Southern California, Los Angeles. You can get information about all these different shows at events.channelpronetwork.com, events.channelpronetwork.com. And I'll just tell you, we're going to be talking about all the things that really matter to you and the folks in our audience right now. So we're going to be talking about security. We're going to be talking about recruiting and retention, which is a very difficult thing to be doing right now. We've got this awesome sort of social media sales and marketing workshop, hands-on kind of thing that we're going to be doing in partnership with experts from JS Group, Janet Shine's company. We're going to be talking about building a Microsoft Azure practice. You're all probably doing Microsoft 365 and Teams. But if you want to get into Azure, as a lot of people do, we're going to provide some real world case studies and ideas. So lots and lots of really good stuff. Events.channelpronetwork.com.
And if you do not want to wait and you want to go and register for that show, you can go to if you're watching on YouTube, I'm going to put a graphic up. It's got a QR code. You can just scan that with your phone. It'll take you straight to the registration page. If you're listening, you can also go to events.channelpronetwork.com, find all the links there. But you can also go to channelproforum.com/Newark. That'll take you right to the registration page for there. You can use the promo code CPVIP. That's only for our podcast listeners. That will get you in the door free of charge. You won't want to miss it, folks. It's going to be a great show and a great way to kick off the year. So lots of great stuff there. I am also very excited to say that we have a guest. If you've been watching, her face has popped up on the screen a couple times. I'm so excited that she is back. She She is, let me get my notes up so I make sure that I get it right. She is a certified image consultant, the owner of Shorr Success, and chief brand builder, communication officer, and corporate strategist of Secure Future Tech Solutions, which is a Rhode Island based MSP. She has more than 2 decades experience in sales and marketing, conducts workshops, coaches MSPs on professional development and corporate branding. She's been involved in our shows before. She's been on the podcast before. She is just a delight to have on. Always love her on. Please welcome Lisa Shorr.
Hey, everybody. I'm so excited to be back. Thanks so much, Matt and Rich, for having me.
It's awesome to have you here. For those who may have missed a previous episode where you were on, please tell us a little bit more about you and what you do.
So before I tell about me, I want to do a quick plug on the SMB forums. They are fantastic. So if you're looking to go and to learn from your peers, as well as have a plethora of vendors to meet one-on-one with, I really recommend you putting those SMB forums on your calendar this year. So, okay, with that said, that's my little shameless plug, but I think that they're fantastic. And I've been to several and I've been able to participate. And I think that they're invaluable knowledge to help us grow our MSPs.
Thank you very much, folks. Don't take our word for it. Take
my word for it. You know, I've been around. So I've been around in the MSP sphere for over 20 years. So my MSP is 30 years old this year. We're actually celebrating 30 years. It's amazing. My specialty is, well, with Shorr Success, my specialty is working with MSP owners as well as their service teams on turning your mindset from being tech focused into what I call brand building rock stars. And that means I work with people on emotional intelligence. And I know we're going to have a guest on talking about emotional intelligence in sales. So I work on emotional intelligence and how do we react, talk about value, as well as what are we impressions and perception management. So how do we look? How do we sound? So anything that has to do with the human side of personal brand building, so that when you walk into a room, people just want to do business with you, but not only want to do business with you, but refer you as well. So they become raving fans. That's what my specialty is. And it came about, Shorr Success came about because my MSP was struggling. And I had to figure out how to make a turnaround, how to change that. My MSP was going through slow profitability. I've lost clients. I was losing, there was a whole variety of things. I had team culture issues. And what I realized, it wasn't just, focusing on the tech side of things. I had to focus on the human side and think about how did I have a team? How could I make a team that was communicative? Never mind anything else. They needed to communicate. But they also needed to communicate well with our clients. They needed to make a great first impression when they showed up on site. So that's when I started turning everything around at my MSP. And I'm proud to share that we've been having double-digit growth year over year, even through the pandemic. We've grown. And I'm very proud of that growth because now I'm able to share real-world stories while I'm coaching other MSPs. So it's been a really nice win-win all around.
And I will point out one of the many reasons we love Lisa is she's also a very good writer and generous about sharing her writing with us. And in fact, we'll be talking about her latest contribution a little bit later on in the show. But if you want to look at all the stuff that she has submitted to us before, go to channelpronetwork.com, look up on the menu at the top of the page, you'll see a listing for blogs. And if you look on that blog menu, you'll see Brand Bites. That's Lisa's blog that she does for us at ChannelPro, and all sorts of really, really great stuff about just what she was talking about now.
All the culture issues I've had and how we've turned them around. So thanks, Rich, for that plug.
Very cool. Now you're in the New England area, if I remember correctly, right?
Yes, so I am. I'm in Rhode Island.
What are the things that Lisa Shorr does to keep herself entertained when she's not coaching or working her own MSP?
I love to work out. I think I live right near a beach. And so I love to go walking along the beach. I have teenage daughters that are keeping me extremely busy. One of them is applying to colleges now. So I feel like in my spare time, not only am I writing for you, Rich, but I'm also helping to write, well, not really write, my daughter's a good writer, but edit college essays. And we're traveling all around for interviews and all that. I love to cook. I made delicious stuffed peppers the other day that were absolutely delicious. And French toast this morning for my daughter's 18th birthday. But yeah, so I love cooking. I love exercising. I love reading a good book as well and walking along the beach. Lovely walks along the beach. Even
You
if
like
it's frigid.
cooking, also liking exercising is very, very helpful.
Got to balance it out, man. I love to eat. So something's got to, it's not that I'm doing it for weight loss. It's just for the maintenance, man. Just trying to maintain, to keep my pants. I can zip them up still, but because I love to eat. But
so Lisa, your story is fascinating because like, as you were kind of telling us a little bit about it, like you were saying you were running an MSP and you were running into problems and you needed to turn it around, and the Shorr success part, like you're not just, you didn't just make this to turn yourself around. You also now help other MSPs and others who are struggling with the same things. How important is that side of the business to you, and how much time do you put into it?
so it's a growing, well, it's always been, I didn't know it. I started Shorr Success as Shorr Style, and I was a stylist dressing professionals. I was doing photo shoots, cleaning closets. And so I expanded my services and I really shifted my clientele, and I focused on one industry, and that's the MSP industry. It's becoming a growing part of my business. And so for that reason, I've had to hire and delegate people at Secure Future Tech to do some of the roles that I was doing, because growing this side of the business and really helping MSPs is a mission in my, I say I have a paradigm shift, that I want to shift the mindset of every MSP globally from thinking that tech skills are all we need to grow a business. It is not. We've got to build in soft skills, or a lot of people say, well, I don't want to use soft skills. I want to call them essential skills, whatever you call them. But the reality is, if we don't think about how we speak, how we look, how we communicate, what we communicate, setting expectations, thinking about that emotional intelligence that we'll talk about in a bit, and how do we empathize and connect with others? And at the end of the day, it's all about being intentional with our actions. So it's a growing piece. As you can, I probably feel it right through the screen. It's extremely passionate and important, because MSPs by nature are tech. That's where their comfort zone is. That's where they want to live. And I get it. And I'm blown away by the conversations. I'm blown away by the knowledge in this industry. But I also see that clients are hiring me because they're losing clients, because they're burning leads, because they don't know how to answer the phones. And that's why I'm getting hired. They're calling me because they need help building teams that are confident and that can build relationships.
So very, very cool. We're very excited to have you on. And I'm sure you're going to have a lot to add in as well, because we've got a lot of really cool things that we're going to talk about. So for those who are wanting to know what we're going to be talking about today, we got some news coming in from ID Agent and the Bullfish ID security training. And Lisa, you know a lot about that because you're, I believe, a partner of them, right?
We are a partner of ID Agents. Absolutely. I'm a big fan of their product and services. Yeah.
So I'm sure you're going to have a lot of insight to add there. We're going to be talking about Sophos and their new entrance into the zero trust network access market. Lenovo's in the news. We're going to be talking about them. You'll have to just stick around to see what we got to say about them. We're going to talk about emotional intelligence and to keep the MSP strong through the pandemic. That's going to be a really cool article that we're going to discuss as well. And then we got an interview coming up later with Keith Lubner. We're going to be talking about emotional selling with emotional intelligence. I bet you guys are going to have a lot to say and talk about for that as well. I
can't wait for that. Yeah, I'm so excited.
That's going to be great. So folks, this is not a show you want to miss. So strap in and we are going to get the ball rolling. Rich, tell us about ID Agent and what they're doing with Bullfish ID.
Yeah, and actually, as we're recording this news broke today, just a few hours ago. So this is hot off the presses right here. So ID Agent is a unit, a subsidiary of Kaseya. They're best known, that the product that kind of put them on the map is called Dark Web ID. It's a dark web monitoring solution. For a long while, it has also been available with a second ID agent solution called Bullfish ID, which is a security awareness training tool. And up until today, up until this week, those two products were essentially one product. You bought them together. The security awareness training tool was sort of embedded within the dark web tool. And what they did this week is split them apart. They are now both available as standalone products. If you want to get them together, you still can, but they are treating these as separate products instead of different components of the same product. So what does that wind up meaning? Well, I mean, first of all, it's going to give the ID agent folks the flexibility to have a separate release schedule and roadmap for the security awareness training tool. You might see updates a little bit more often there. It's going to give them the ability to customize the interface for that solution a little bit. It'll have its own kind of user experience, which was hard for them to do before. Another thing is, because if you buy that product on its own, instead of buying two products together, it's going to be less expensive. So it's aggressively priced. It'll be less expensive than you were paying for the two products before, which makes it possible to consider using this as a sales tool. Dark Web ID itself has been a very powerful sales tool for a lot of MSPs out there. There's nothing quite as compelling as going into a sales meeting with a prospect and showing him or her their password. That will get somebody's attention. But these days, security awareness training is a great door opener too. There are a lot of cyber insurance policies that require a certain amount of that, and there are MSPs who are sort of introducing themselves to customers with a security awareness offering, and then doing a sort of land and expand from there into other elements of security, and then maybe into the whole managed services package. You will get, as an MSP, you'll get some more flexibility to bundle this tool now together with other things that you use that maybe you didn't have before. You were sort of locked into getting the dark web product. If that's not something you want, you have some more flexibility. Kaseya has some more flexibility in terms of how they maybe bundle this together now with some of the other security tools that they sell on top of this. And then I'm looking quickly here. I mean, there were some other product updates to Bullfish ID announced this week. The ability to customize the training emails and training programs a little bit, the ability to create one campaign, apply it to multiple customers, the ability to customize reports in terms of timing and content. They've sort of enhanced the reporting functionality. And they've added the ability to put your logo onto white label, basically the interface that the end user is going to see. But the big news here is just that it's its own product now, and that makes this that opens up possibilities for everybody, basically.
I think
Lisa,
that
I
one
want to turn it
of the,
straight over to you. Does this make sense now that it's its own thing? Have you kind of wanted it to be a separate product?
we have, we have wanted it switched out or separated, because the log, so just when you sign on a Bullfish client, the way that you had to purchase it, you bought the whole bundle together, you had to buy it. So you had to register the company through the ID agent domain, even if it's for Bullfish. And it was, as my sales engineer, I talked to my sales engineer before I came on this to get his experience of logging people in and what the experience was. And he's like, it's always kludgy because there isn't really the reports come up, and if you're just Bullfish but you're not doing the dark web monitoring, then it's showing reports but not showing domain monitoring. And so it was very kludgy. It was really challenging to actually set companies up as well. So he was very excited because we as partners got an email today. You wrote the article pretty quick. We also got an email listing all of this stuff out. So we were discussing it at our staff meeting. So it was kind of perfect timing that you said we were going to talk about this today. And he's very excited that we're separating out one, login for each, and that'll make life easier. The other thing I want to mention is the automated reporting. Instead of us having to download it and then send it, it's just automatically going to go to the client. So we'll do the simulated training. We'll send out a phishing email and we'll test the company. And then the client gets the reporting. So according to this, the client will now get the reporting. That's exciting too, because it's just much more efficient, less labor on our part. So I'm pretty excited about that too.
Excellent. And Rich, they talked about the price, and they said that now that it's kind of unbundled, it is available for less. Did they walk through the pricing? How much less is it? Does it still make sense to sell it as a bundle? What do you think?
Well, they didn't get into specific dollar and cents figures with me. I don't actually know if that, for all I know, they post that on the website, and that information is available. I mean, I know across the board at Kaseya for pretty much everything that they sell, pricing things aggressively is part of their competitive strategy. And so I assume, you know, whatever you're paying or we're paying for the two products together, it's going to be quite a bit less to buy one of those individually. It's also worth mentioning, while it pops into my head here, if you have a license for both those products right now, that doesn't change. Like for the duration of your contract, you've still got, and you're paying whatever you were paying. But yeah, the net new customers have the ability to buy separately, pay less, and then when renewal comes around, the legacy customers too can kind of switch things up.
And you mentioned something important in this article, and that's the cyber insurance. So a bigger component of our MSP lately is actually working with our clients as they're doing cyber renewals, and the list of must-haves in order to receive a renewal and an insurance policy, cyber liability, cyber crime, the two different policies that you need is, and it always includes things like the cyber training. So this is a big deal for MSPs who aren't already offering cyber training to your clients. This is a big deal and it's something that insurance companies are now requiring. So I thought that was an interesting and valid point for having this product as a standalone. The pricing could be more compelling because you're already paying policies that are out the window, and we're always looking to find ways to be efficient and cost effective for clients if we can be. So, but the cyber training is now a requirement. So I thought that was interesting that you mentioned that in the article too.
Fantastic. Well, it seems like it's a good thing. I think everyone thinks this is a good change for ID Agent, making these two things separate. So Lisa, so you are an ID Agent partner. You use this. Is this? I'm sure you've looked at other security awareness tools. This is the one that you guys like the most?
This is the one that we have stuck with for many reasons. One, it's, we like the product. We like the results of the product. I also have great relationships with their team. And that's a big deal as well. They have been conversational. We're able to get them when we need them. They're, and that's a big deal when you're dealing with vendors. There are other vendors out there, sure, that do the simulation training and all of that, but we have really nice relationship with ID Agent. I love the powered services program. I know that's mentioned in the article. I've been able to, if I'm in a pinch and I need a quick social post or a phishing email sample, I go right to powered services and grab something from their site. So it's been able to really solve a lot of our questions or, fill in a gap in our services and we do use the ID Agent when you were talking about the phishing. When we're doing, the dark web scanning, Rich, when you were mentioning in the beginning, that's a great marketing tool that we do at trade shows. So that's our pitch. Do you want to know if you're on the dark web? And we'll literally do the scan there. Got a portable printer. We print out the report for them. They have to give us their business card, of course. And so we turn it into a lead, but I use it right there. So it's been a great product for us.
Excellent. Well, something that folks want to check out. They added a lot of updates to this as well when they spun it off. There's new features that you might want to check out. So, folks, all of the articles and news entries that we're talking about, we've got links in the show notes at channelpronetwork.com. You go to the show notes for episode 212. They're there. A lot of phones, when you subscribe to the podcast, which you should do, subscribe to Channel Pro Weekly. That way it's just in your phone, no matter where you are. A lot of those will show you the links there. If not, you can go to the website, channelpronetwork.com, and you can find them there. If you're watching on YouTube, hello, hit the like button, leave a comment. It's always appreciated. And you can open up the description area. We got links there because there's a lot more detail. We're just kind of giving our thoughts and hitting the high level stuff here. So go and check all of these out while you are listening and read along to get more of the details. Rich, Sophos is in the news. They are entering the zero trust network access market. What the heck does that mean?
Well, here we are, Matt. It's been all of 2 weeks since the last time we spoke about Sophos. 2 episodes. Last time we spoke about Sophos on this podcast here. Last time they were releasing the first network switches they've ever made. They're entering or have entered a new market again this week, and it's Zero Trust Network Access, or ZTNA, is the commonly used acronym. And by golly, the name of the product is Sophos ZTNA. It is the latest addition to their secure access portfolio, which includes those network switches and a whole set of other products that they offer. What's kind of interesting about this ZTNA product, it works very, very closely in cooperation with Intercept X, which is their endpoint protection system. And so basically it allows you to provide both forms of protection, the antivirus and the ZTNA, through a single agent that can get put onto more or less any device that your customers are using. And it's important both because, it's not another agent that you're putting out there and managing, but it's also, you want to have that agent on all the devices that your customers use these days, especially because that laptop that they're on is sometimes in the office and sometimes at home. And people are working on different devices in different places, and having ZTNA technology in the office is no longer sufficient right now. So this is sort of a built for the hybrid age, mobile-ready kind of ZTNA solution. The folks at Sophos will argue with you that if you're relying on things like remote desktops or IPsec or VPN, basically to protect the network from some of those remote locations, you're basically relying exclusively on encryption, which is a powerful tool. But a ZTNA tool it will take more of a whitelist kind of approach, a more hardcore kind of approach to granting least access as necessary, least privilege principles. Get applied typically through a ZTNA tool. And then same argument that Sophos made 2 weeks ago when we were talking about their network switches. Why should you be using their network switches? Well, one of the reasons they like to emphasize is that not only does this new product integrate with Intercept X, but it also shares information with a lot of their other solutions. And so this is just one more way basically to kind of reduce some of the financial and operational burdens that come with a multi-vendor security strategy. If simplifying that is appealing to you, now they're saying they've got another way to do that. But it's interesting. We're not even out of January yet, Matt, and here's the second new, totally new, and not even like an updated product, but totally new product category for Sophos.
They must have been hunkered down and really busy last year making all this new stuff for folks. So Lisa, let me ask you this. So as an MSP, do you see adding ZTNA to your existing stack of BDR, MDR, PSAA, VXDR, and JWI, stack?
Say that 65 times. Not this particular product, but I do agree that it's important, especially because we're all hybrid. Traditional VPNs, when you log in to a VPN, you're usually given the keys to multiple networks. This concept, which I really like, is saying, I'm only going to give you access to the one you need, what you need. And that's the whole idea of zero trust. So this is something that's really been a huge conversation in my MSP, as well as all the conferences, including yours, that we've been going to. This has been a conversation. And as we have to be responsible and think about, well, who needs access to what? And I mean, I like the idea of bundling the endpoint protection along with it as just convenience. But I think that the bigger thing that we're talking about and looking at, I don't know that Sophos is going to be our product, but I think that what Sophos is really instigating here is a conversation that MSPs need to have internally as to which team members have access to whose network. Because even if their networks are locked down in terms of users and passwords and all of that, a hacker can still be savvy. Once they figure out how to get into the tunnel there, then they're just going to move laterally. And we just did this in a presentation yesterday on business email compromise to attorneys at a bar association. We talked about once they get in, then they move laterally. Well, it would be the same thing with a hacker here. So I think that it's really a critical conversation, one we're having daily at my MSP.
Yeah, Rich, and she's absolutely right. We've been talking a lot about zero trust as just as a concept at many shows throughout 2021. Maybe Lisa, this would be a good opportunity, maybe just to help our listeners if they're not familiar with the whole concept of zero trust. Kind of tell us what that is.
Zero trust essentially means, and plug me in if I'm missing a piece of it, but when I think of zero trust, it means that we literally lock down everything and we only give access to the systems that we are only going to need. So for example, my office manager needs access to QuickBooks and she needs access to Autotask. There aren't any other programs that she really needs access to. So why would she need access to my service manager's continuum portal? Why, or her network? So we're making a huge effort internally at my MSP to lock down permissions. So for example, I actually, made a list of some of the things that we're working on, anticipating thing that we were going to talk about this. I guess I can read your mind a little bit, Matt. But like we're global admin rights for Office 365 is something that we have buttoned, I know we're talking Sophos, but just to kind of give you a personal example, in my MSP, we've buttoned down global access. Not everybody needs access to all the different licenses and portals and all the different features that Office 365 offers. Our VPN Mobile Connect is also, I don't know exactly how they do it back end, but I know that that's something that they're giving very limited permissions to different people who need that access, and SentinelOne as well. So those are different areas that we've been working on in terms of who really, so we have to all take a step back and think, who really needs access? Because once if a hacker gains access, like our bench is a separate separate segment of our network. So we think about all the different aspects and the question is who needs access? And if they don't need access to it, it's not an insult to say, I'm taking it away from you. It's just saying, I don't want a hacker to get into, trying to limit the amount of opportunity that a hacker has into our networks. So it's a security stance of saying, I don't trust anybody. I love you all, but I don't trust you. I'm only going to give you limited access to what you really need.
Yeah, and it's not saying you don't give access to people who need access to something, but it is a concept. I love the way you explained it, by the way. It was great. It's even to do it right, you got to go down to even to the individual file levels. Like you don't need access to this file, you don't have access to this file.
Right.
And you're right. It's not an insult to tell somebody that. It's just to say, it's an acknowledgement that human beings are the attack vectors these days.
Exactly. You want to limit your exposure.
Exactly. So if I am breached, what things do I have access to, and why would we want to put anything on the network or any system in place that I don't have any reason of touching? Why would I want to make that liable if I'm the one exposed? So
100%.
It's a great concept, and so tell me this, because we're starting to see a lot of tools that help with this, because it's a very time intensive and tedious process because it's a lot of micromanagement. How are the tool sets like this helping make this something that is feasible to do?
So ask me the question again, the tool set. So what are you referring to?
So we're seeing tools like this that kind of help make like the ZTNA stuff, help make this concept more feasible to implement at scale, right? So are you finding it easy, tools like this making it easier, or is it still a lot of work to
it's a lot of work.
Identify stuff?
It's granular because really when you do this right, it gets granular. I like the idea that Sophos is combining a couple of products. So it's one portal, one agent, so it's more efficient. But to do this right and to really do the process right, I would have to sit down with my service manager and say, okay, what's the process? What have you experienced? But just hearing what she said during our staff meetings hasn't been an easy process, but it's one that's necessary because we have to take that stance. We have to do all we can to do, like I said, limit our exposure. So tools like this will make it more efficient, and having one portal versus, right now I've got SonicWall, and then I also have SentinelOne. So that's two different portals I have to go into and manage. And, and then I told you the other things that we're doing as well, Office 365. So now I'm managing multiple portals and working on locking out what isn't necessary for different people. So it's going to be a labor intensive process, but we'll be thankful in the end.
Very cool. And Rich, we were seeing a lot more products kind of focused on helping implement zero trust. And this is just one of the newest ones. But what are some of the other products, just so people can come to the site and see what they need to be searching? What are some of the other products that kind of help with this?
Well, I mean, some of the other vendors who are in the CTNA space would include AppGate, Palo Alto, VMware, ThreatLocker. I think Fortinet has a product. So I mean, a lot of the bigger security companies have zero trust access products of one kind or another out there.
Cool. And where you can learn a lot about them and more is channelpronetwork.com. So if you go there each and every day, you can check out the news and articles, because that's where you're going to be learning about all this stuff. Very, very important to do. And there's lots more in this article too. Rich, was there anything else on here you wanted to touch on the Sophos product?
I'm just super quickly, because Lisa was talking about the importance of segmentation in zero trust, and that is a really important concept there. There is segmentation technology in the Sophos product, and the importance of that. Sophos published their research organization published a case study this week about a technology vendor. They didn't name the vendor, so we don't know who it was, but some technology vendor out there was breached. An attacker got onto the network, and because the segmentation wasn't robust, they spent 2 months hopping around from system to system, and that's what happens.
That's that lateral move. Absolutely.
Yep.
Scary stuff. Lots of not nice, nefarious people in the world trying to exploit stuff. So don't give them access to things. Start locking things down. Listen
and
to
change
Lisa.
your password
She's very
regularly. Make sure you have different passwords for everything, or else they're going to do credential stuffing as well to do all they can.
Oh yeah, don't get me started on that.
Separate.
I'm a big credentials guy.
Oh, completely separate conversation. But anyway.
Listen to Lisa, folks. She's really, really smart. She knows what she's talking about. Do what, so just ask yourself, what would Lisa do? That's what you need to do. All right.
Tell my children that.
Well, they'll never
my husband.
You're the parent, so automatically you don't qualify for that.
Yeah.
All right. So we got one more news story we want to touch on, Rich, and that's Lenovo. They're in the news. They're adding some high performance computing to something. Tell us about that.
So high performance computing, I mean, there are probably some people listening right now who are thinking, well, that's a niche and I'm not in that niche, and this is probably not relevant to me. It might be a little more relevant to you once you begin to understand this offering a little bit, because one of the things that's interesting about it to me is that it could open up this market a little bit to people who are not playing in there right now. So what last year, Lenovo introduced a program they call TrueScale, which is their hardware as a service program. And at some point last year, they pretty much made almost everything that they do available through the TrueScale program. What they did this week is add high-performance computing products to TrueScale as well. So you can now get these HPC computers on an as-a-service basis. According to Lenovo, and I haven't been able to verify this, I don't know if it's true or not, but they're saying this is the first pay-per-use on-premises HP, as-a-service HPC kind of offering out there. And so it kind of brings some of the, operational expenditure, cloud computing kind of flexibility advantages of that hardware as a service model to the HPC market. And just think about, we've spoken many times before here about platforms like Apex from Dell and GreenLake from HPE, which both involve, on-premises hardware that you're paying for on a consumption basis. And that's kind of how this will work. Now, interestingly, ordinarily, when people get interested in hardware as a service, what interests them about that is that they have the ability to scale up, but also kind of scale down. If I'm not utilizing the product, I'm not paying for the product. That is apparently, according to Lenovo, less of an issue with HPC. Their HPC customers average about 90% plus utilization 24/7, according to Lenovo. So that, in the past, there have been two issues basically that have kept SMBs away from these kind of HPC, like cloud-based HPC as a service HPC kinds of products. And one is there's not all that much appeal to being able to pay less when you're not utilizing, because they're always utilizing. And then the other thing is just that the prices were sort of scaled to the enterprise and not the SMB. What SMBs find interesting or may about this offering is that it is priced affordably or priced within reach of an SMB budget. And it allows them to do something that has been very, very difficult for them in the past. In the past, if you started running out of capacity or you landed some big new project and you needed new HPC gear to handle that project, you had to go out and buy new equipment. It could take weeks, maybe months before that order gets fulfilled and you've got it set up. What Lenovo hopes that HPC customers will find appealing about this is the idea of having unused capacity that you're not paying for sitting there in the closet or the data center or whatever, just kind of ready to go. And you snap your fingers and that, instead of waiting months, the capacity is available immediately, and then you just start paying for it as you use it. And then the other thing, of course, this is on premises, so you can do some of what I just described with a public cloud-based HPC offering, but then you're going to have latency issues, and then there's the whole sort of egress charge issue. It's very easy to get the data into that platform. It can be expensive to get it back out. So, and the folks at Lenovo, they are not imagining that a future in which HPC customers are going to be doing everything through an as-a-service kind of platform. They are kind of seeing this as maybe a tier to a multi-tiered strategy that you might see for HPC customers, where they'll stick with the stuff that they're using now, traditional model on premises. They'll maybe grow into an as-a-service platform for the reasons that I just listed. And then they might do some things in the public cloud if they need some burst capacity for short-term spikes. If there's specialized functionality they can only get through a platform like that. So this becomes one way to meet that HPC need. So again, it's priced a little bit more affordably than some HPC solutions have been in the past. Lenovo is hoping that this is going to open up a whole new market for them. They, in fact, have been preparing for the last 5 years, basically. They have been engineering everything HPC oriented that they make for today, essentially, for the day when they will be able to sell something that SMBs can afford, because they see that as this big new market. And here's how big is the market? Well, first of all, according to Intersect 360, which is a research organization that tracks HPC, you're looking at a 9.1% compound annual growth rate through 2025 to over $60 billion. But this was really surprising to me. 20% of Lenovo's revenue today is from HPC customers. So it's already kind of a giant market for them, and they see this getting potentially even bigger, and maybe this brings some of their partners along with them.
That's a lot of dollars to be a niche market.
Yeah.
So Lisa, I'd love to get an MSP's perspective on HPC. You deal with, you said, a lot of lawyers, a lot of law firms.
Yeah,
do you have a lot of customers that are leveraging compute power?
Not yet. We haven't come across, we have other clients as well that we work with, some manufacturing clients and construction clients, but no one that's really needed this particular product. But I like the idea that the concept of paying for your usage versus having to have a monthly payment and it's there. Maybe you don't need it, then I think that's an efficient sales conversation to have. Like, hey, we've got a new program, and we're already doing hardware as a service. So we like that model with our firewalls, and some other clients are completely hardware as a service. So we're familiar with that. But I have a question for you, Rich. It says in the article that Lenovo pays partners upfront. So where does Lenovo make their money in the end? Like that, to me, it's intriguing that, hey, if I find a client that would fit this need, then I get my revenue and I can collect my payment upfront. I like that for cash flow, but where does Lenovo make money? How does that translate?
they're making money over time, over the length of the contract, through those use-based payments. And it's worth mentioning, by the way, a lot of distributors operate the same way. So if they all have, you know, hardware as a service programs these days, and most of them will just pay you the whole value of the deal for you right up front. You get the cash immediately, and then they're collecting the payments every month. So that's how Lenovo will do it too.
Like that.
So it seems like if the real draw to this, from my opinion, is having more capacity than you need. Because if you know what capacity you need, it's going to be really tough to sell somebody on, well, you should pay for that as a service, as opposed to just buying the hardware and utilizing it to whatever capacity you want. Or am I wrong there? Is this okay? So let's say you never need more capacity than what you have, and you're going to use it 100% all the time. Which model makes more sense?
Like economically, from a financial standpoint, or
yeah, sure. Let's go with that. I'm trying to see, like, I get the point that if you want to have extra capacity on hand, so you want to have a big rack of compute power ready to rock and roll, but it's not costing you a dime until you actually touch it. That model makes sense to me. But that also makes sense for certain cases when, like, you would be expecting to have a client like ramp up and down with certain things. But is that the only time this makes sense, or does this model make sense when your utilization is known and fixed? Or am I not?
Well, I mean, no, I think, and I don't know exactly how the numbers would compare on the standard purchasing model versus the per use model, but I mean, the idea is, or what Lenovo is saying, you know, their customers are typically utilizing 90% of the capacity anyway. So, I mean, in theory, that's a wash, right? Whether you're paying for it up front, or, you know, maybe you prefer having it on the operational budget instead of having to make a big capital outlay up front. That might be a financial advantage to the as a service kind of model. But I don't think they believe, and again, SMB is a little bit different, because this theoretically makes HPC a little bit easier for a smaller business to get into. But the big driver isn't that financial advantage. It's more the other advantage you were talking about, which is just that there's this pain point for a growing company that does high performance computing, where it just takes a lot of time to add capacity, and you don't want to make a big capital expenditure upfront, anticipating that you're going to need, you know, capacity later. This is just a much more efficient, faster way to keep up with increasing capacity needs.
I think that I want to ask about the on-premise piece too. Wouldn't that be a benefit as well? So, because you're not dealing with the cloud traffic. So if you're doing calculations and you need to get it done, and there's a lot to compute, then you have to deal with the cloud traffic and the internet and all. Where if it's on premise, it would be a much more efficient, quicker, powerful process. Would that be?
Absolutely, yeah. There's
right? Yeah.
A lot of data, a lot of processing.
Right.
Yeah, performance is just going to be a problem if you're doing this purely in the cloud. My understanding is the like public cloud HPC market has actually grown quite a bit in the last 2 years, because people couldn't go into the office where the on-premises stuff, but they were sort of stuck with cloud-based alternatives. But I believe, based on what I've heard, that most HPC users much prefer to have the equipment on site for that performance related reason.
Interesting. Cool. Well, let me ask one question from the MSP perspective. So, because Lisa asked about who makes money and when. Does the partner make money on the utilization of the hardware, or just on the implementation up front?
I mean, I assume whatever margin you're making, you know, there's margin that you're making from Lenovo on anything, you know, that you sell, however you sell. So there is some hardware margin, I'm sure, built into this. I don't know what the percentages look like, how that compares, but yeah, I'm sure you're making money on the gear itself as well as the implementation.
That's a good question.
And does the partner make money on the utilization after that, or just on the implementation?
Well, I mean, they're getting their money up front, So I don't know how that percentage, you know, how that formula works, but they get paid once.
Okay, good to
That
know.
was my
Good to know.
question, Matt,
Lisa,
too.
any other thoughts?
No, that was my question. Like where do you, any kind of residuals on this? Do you make it up front and then, so yeah, I'll make a markup on it. And, hardware markup isn't that fancy. So, but then is that it? Is it, a one and done for the MSP? So, but I guess stay tuned and we'll learn more to come on that one.
Yeah,
Sounds like.
For sure. I'm sure it's on the top. The last time we're going to talk about high performance computing and doing that as a service for sure. So that kind of wraps up the news, but we got one other story we want to talk about, and it's written by someone who happens to be on this particular show right now. It's an article from Miss Lisa Shorr, or a blog entry in her blog that she has on the site. And it's called The 5 Ways I Use Emotional Intelligence to Keep My MSP Strong Through the Pandemic. Rich, you want to set up the conversation, or we want to just let Lisa roll with it?
I mean, I'll set it up a little bit because the origin of this, Lisa contacted me, I think it was in December, to say that she was working on this and was curious to know if we'd be interested in publishing it. And I said we absolutely would be, because this is such an important topic right now in particular. So, I mean, the last 2 years, understatement of the show, have been difficult for everybody for a number of different reasons. But I think they've been especially difficult for leaders and managers because on top of all the other stresses that everybody is kind of dealing with, you've also got to lead people through everything that's going on and create a sense of calm and project confidence. And so it's very difficult, and it's not an easy thing to do. And I know a lot of people have been kind of figuring it out as they go along. And Lisa came to me with an article about how she is using emotional intelligence at her business. And with that, Lisa, tell folks a little bit about what you say in the article.
Thank you for allowing, for this opportunity to talk about this article. I think MSPs have been heroic during the pandemic, and we should commend ourselves a million times over for being the arm of the pandemic that kept the economy going. The medical community was amazing, of course. The IT community set everybody up at home, created the hybrid workforces, kept people employed that wanted to work and stay at work, and also kept our clients kept running. But as a business owner that I am, it was exhausting. It was a rewarding experience, to say the least, but I just thought I would be a little bit vulnerable here in our industry. We're a very strong and tough industry. And I thought I would be a little vulnerable and say, hey, this is what I was experiencing. Can you relate? Are you connecting with me on this level? And I was hoping to hit some of the heartstrings and to tell people you did a great job. I'm proud of you for what you did. I bet you've done some of the things I did, but let me kind of give you the definition of what you're doing. And that's why emotional intelligence is such an incredibly important tool in a leader's toolbox. Service team as well, but when we're talking about the leadership in a pandemic, we have to think about every action that we take has an impact on our team. Everything that I said, every facial expression that I gave was being read, was being perceived based on my employees' values, based on the way they were raised, based on what their perceptions are. And I have 22 people on staff. So that's a lot of different perceptions that we're watching. And all they really got to see during the pandemic, once we went home, was this little screen that you guys see me in now. That's even harder. So I had to be present. I had to smile a lot. I had to be patient and flexible when employees came to us and said, hey, I need to work from home, or I can't go on site. My kids are at home, whatever it was. I needed to meet people where they were. And that means I had to respond to them thinking about my voice and being empathetic in my voice. I couldn't be frustrated, really? You can't figure out childcare? Like that would never have, flown. So I had to be empathetic and I had to say, okay, I get it. I have children too. They're home as well. Do what you have to do. Luckily, in IT, we're able to, use the cloud in most of our programs that we work on. So we were able to have that hybrid environment, and we had a few people in the office, but most of us were separate because we didn't want, and initially the infection to spread, and then all 22 of us would be out. That would be devastating. So what we're going through now, so this article came up because when I wrote it, I was literally sitting at my kitchen table, like saying, oh my gosh, because this is when Omicron really spread. And I had all of these employees out. People were quarantining. I was like, oh my gosh, I cannot wait to get through this, but I'm tired. I am, and I bet you other MSPs are too. So I wanted to share strategies of what I've done day to day and still do and will continue to do post-pandemic. So it's been quite a process, that's for sure.
And there are 5 specific measures that you talk about in the article, and obviously we will link to the article from the show notes. I strongly encourage everybody to go check the article out. But you said a moment ago that you were kind of making yourself vulnerable a little bit by confessing that you're tired and this is difficult, and trusting that there would be other people out there in the ChannelPro audience experiencing exactly the same thing. And the second item on your list, actually, your emotional intelligence practice was all about showing vulnerability. So, I mean, speak to that a little bit.
It's important that our employees know that while we know we have a responsibility to run the business and keep it going, but we're also human. And I wanted my employees, so we discussed, my husband and I, Eric and I, got COVID in October. After their SMB forum, I went home, had COVID. And so I was I had empathy. So for everyone who got sick, I had a new level of empathy for people. I knew what it felt like to have the flu, but now I really know what it feels like to have COVID. And I had to talk about it. I had to share about it. We had vulnerable conversations with different family members that were ill, and I had to meet people where they were in terms of their children and how were they doing and what were we experiencing. So I wanted to humanize myself as a leader, not just put myself on a pedestal, but say, hey, I'm one of you too, and I get it. I'm here with you. I get it. We're suffering. Let's talk about how we can work on this together. Let's figure out what we can do to get through this. And so one of the things that we did, we instituted a daily meeting. So we over communicated, I feel like, but it's not really over communicating. Some people might think that, but I felt like we needed to stay connected every day. And so not every staff meeting is as a tech talk. You know me well enough by now that I think it's really important to talk about our favorite restaurants, our pets. I know almost everyone's pets now. And we talked about the children, or we talked about our favorite movies, different game activities that we're doing together, whatever we could do to build bonds and get through this, to lighten the conversation. But then again, we had the conversation when we needed to. And we talked about COVID. We talked about testing. We talked about mask wearing. And we had all of those conversations because we needed to have that connection with our team. The worst thing that a leader could be during a pandemic like this and be perceived as is disconnected, not present, and not empathetic to what other people are going through. That's really how we keep our relationships. It's to show our team, we get it. We're here for you. Let's talk about it.
And one of the things you brought up in the article that I also thought was a really good one to touch on, because we've talked a lot about being connected for your team and having this for those on staff. That's absolutely important, but it also is about your clients too. And you specifically pointed out in here that your clients were a priority, and
Mm.
I found that a lot of businesses have used the pandemic as just this universal excuse to be able to provide bad service.
Right.
But the ones who are really successful aren't taking that approach. Talk to that, if you will.
When the pandemic began, Eric and I made a concerted effort and a decision. We are going to be there and be present. We didn't know what we were in for. We didn't know what that meant. We didn't know the concessions we were going to make going forward, but we knew we had to be there. And with our clients specifically, we donated webcams for clients that didn't have cameras. A lot of our clients relied just on in-office. They were in the office. What did they need webcams for? We didn't really have that normalcy of virtual and Zoom and Teams, and we had Teams, but now it's part of our daily experience. So we donated cameras. We created webinars on how to use Teams and cybersecurity. We were present. We did a lot of what we call quarterly business review meetings. Some people call them technical business review meetings, whatever you call them. It was meeting with our clients, not just to sell them, but in the beginning, especially to check in. How are you doing? How are you dealing with this? How can we help you? And clients came to us and said, you know, I'm really struggling. Can we have a credit? Can I, whatever it was. And so we found ourselves saying, of course, we'll give you a credit. We'll give you a couple of months off to get caught up. Whatever they needed, but we met them where they were. And now everyone's back to normal. We're in a great place now and we're back to normal, but it was really a process of saying, okay, not only was I empathetic with my employees and had to meet them where they were, our clients needed to know that we were strong, we were viable, we were present, we haven't gone anywhere, we haven't shied away from any of this process either. And we did that through, thank God for technology. Thank goodness we were able to utilize Teams. And thank goodness we were using Zoom and all the different programs that we had available to us so we could connect. It was so important. And it got us through the pandemic. We didn't let anybody go, no layoffs, and which was great. And, you know, here we are today. So I'm thankful.
And you probably came on the other side of that with a lot of loyal customers as well.
We did. Yeah, no, they were thanking us. And it was heartwarming, but they did thank us for that as well. You bet.
Well, that is fantastic. It's a great article. There's a lot of different points in here. I really recommend folks hit the show notes page on channelpronetwork.com or open your phone, or if you're watching on YouTube, open that up. Go read this. Very, very, very well written and very insightful. I hope everybody checks that out. With that, we're going to take a short break, but when we come back, we've got Keith Lubner. He's going to be joining us. He's the managing partner, by the way, Channel Consulting Corp, and executive vice president of and head of trade. A lot of titles. He's got a lot of titles, but he's a very, very smart guy. But we're going to be talking about sales EQ and how that works. So it's going to be a fascinating discussion, and Lisa's the perfect person to join us for that. She's going to be with us on the other side because she's also into the emotional intelligence and personal branding. So like she's just going to have I'm sure a lot to say. It's going to be an awesome discussion. So we'll get him on, and we'll be back in just a moment. And we are back with part 2 of ChannelPro Weekly. What are the keys to sales success? Knowing your product, technology, commanding the process, and a great pitch. Or at least it used to be. Buyers expect more today, and that's why our guest says sellers must leverage a new psychology of selling to better deliver a better buying experience. Now, here to talk about that is Keith Lubner, Executive Vice President and the Head of Training and Consulting for Sales Gravy, and Managing Partner of the Channel Consulting Corp, also known as C3. Welcome, Keith.
Thank you so much for having me. Good to be here.
It's great to have you on with us. It's been a while. For those who may not have seen you before or got a chance to see you speak, tell us a little bit about you and what you do.
Oh my goodness gracious! Do you have an hour and a half? Then I can give you all about my background. But I'll give you the commercial, the short version of it. Okay. I've been in the technology space for over 30 years, and I presented at multiple conferences, yours included. In fact, you blessed me back in 2016 by being one of the the ChannelPro luminaries, if you will, at that point. And I tell everybody about it. I was so thrilled when that happened. But what we do is we really work with a lot of firms, both within technology and outside of technology, outside of those spaces, in helping them accelerate their routes to market. And when you really think about it, that comes down to some core basic things that they have to do from a sales, marketing, and messaging perspective. So we focus entirely on that, and we train people around that. And our founder of Sales Gravy, he's written 15 books. He's on his 16th book right now, and they're worldwide bestsellers. And they resonate with people because of this one notion: simplicity. They're very simple topics that can be deployed and effectively put in motion. And when people do that, because from a psychological perspective, when you really think about it, people crave simplicity. They can't stand complexity. When we overcomplicate things, when we overcomplicate sales processes, when we overcomplicate something like prospecting, when we overcomplicate messages, it doesn't resonate well in the marketplace. So when you boil it down to simplicity, great things tend to happen. So we based all of our training programs around that core philosophy, if you will.
So what we really want to talk about with you here right now, Keith, is this whole sales EQ, sales emotional quotient idea that you've really, from my perspective, been kind of a pioneer of. And I'll say, you're just joining us on the show now. We just moments ago, we're speaking with our guest host, Lisa Shorr, about an article that she wrote for our website about the importance these days of emotional intelligence. And so this whole idea of being kind of plugged in emotionally to the people you're communicating with, I think it's kind of in the air a little bit right now, and certainly on this episode of the show. Tell folks a little bit about just what is sales EQ.
Okay, no, it's you're right. It is top of mind, and in fact, it's what ultra high performers, and we work with these people day in and day out. It's what they're doing really, really well now that's differentiating themselves from everybody else in the marketplace. Sales EQ is sales specific emotional intelligence, and what that means is people understand how to control their own disruptive emotions, but also how to impact and influence the emotions that others have. And at the core, when you can do that, you lock in and create deeper, more meaningful relationships. Because when you really think about it, at the end of the day, people buy from people. And we have to understand that. And when we understand that, and these ultra high performers I reference, they know that. And so when they go into engagements, when they start interacting with people, they don't start pitching people on logic, bits, bytes, speeds, feeds. And they understand that people will make decisions based on emotion first, then justify on logic. The problem, though, is, especially in the technology field, and I've been in for over 30 years, is that we've been conditioned. I remember my very first job 30 years ago. They told me, get out there and demo the product. Just demo it, and the product will sell itself. So we've been conditioned for years and years and years to pitch logic, the bits, the bytes, the speeds, the feeds, and then it'll take care of itself. And now it's we've completely flipped it on its script. You now have to go into relationships, and you have to hold off on the logic, because people can find out in upwards of 70 to 80% about you and your products and your services well before you ever engage with them. So what does the differentiator become? It becomes the relationship, the emotional intelligence, the ability to connect to people. So when we teach this, and we teach this an awful lot, we've written a book on it. It's called Sales EQ. Our founder's written many books, and that's one of the best sellers out there. You have to go into the relationship thinking that the person on the other end, they're not thinking about the specs or anything like that. What they're thinking about are 5 questions in the back of their head. And they're thinking about this subconsciously, by the way. The first question they think about when they interact with you is, very simply, do I like you? It's the first question you thought about with me. It's the first question I thought about with you when we ever met, the first time we ever met. The next question they think about is, do you listen to me? And then the next question they think about is actually the most insatiable, you try to trigger the most insatiable human need. And that's this question: do you make me feel important? Then they start thinking about, do you get me and my problems? And then they start thinking about, do I trust and I believe you? But if you notice that sequence there, you got to open up the first couple doors and answer those questions first. Now, what these ultra high performers do, they go right in and they start to trigger those questions. What they don't do is they don't go in and pitch. They don't go in and start selling on logic, because people aren't operating that way. And when you develop that relationship with someone, no matter what, you win.
So it's like you got to sell yourself first, and then you can get into selling the whatever you're actually pitching.
Yeah, you got to connect. Yeah, you have to connect first. And that's how all humans simply operate. If you think about it, think about, your best clients, or they're typically relationship based. I ask this question a lot of the classes that I teach. I say, think back on, or think currently on the best clients that you have. And invariably people say, oh yeah, they're a good friend of mine now. I hang out with them. I can call them up and they respond this way. Those are all relationship-based answers.
So before we go on to the second part of that, I want to touch on the very first question of that, which was, what are these people thinking? And they say, the first one is, do I like you? That's a really hard one to do anything about, right? Because that is subconscious. There's a lot of factors of reasons why they may not like you. Do you have any thoughts or strategies? And Lisa, I would love to have you chime in on this, because you're kind of like a personal brand manager. So you've got lots of experience. How do you make people like you?
Keith, I'll let you take it first, and then I'm happy to.
Absolutely. No, I could talk for hours on this topipic right here. This is
Me
great.
too.
So if you think about it, what people don't want you to do, they don't want you to pitch. They don't want you to, throw the logic at you, because they probably already know that. Now, when sales individuals, especially in the technology space, because like I said, we've been conditioned for that, when we start to go after people that way, we start ending up sounding like Charlie Brown's teacher. Put that vision in your head. Exactly. We start sounding like that, which means our message isn't getting across, because we never truly understand or can hear what Charlie Brown's teacher is actually saying. So you think about, do I like you? How you trigger that is you have to ask really, good open-ended questions. Because when you ask an open-ended question, it forces the other person on the other end to say more than one word in their response to you. Now, here's what happens when that occurs. When they start talking, what you're doing is you're triggering their self-disclosure loop. That dopamine in everybody's brain starts to kick in the gear. And when that kicks in the gear, they start to open up, they start to talk more, and now all you're doing is you're listening. And when you're listening, they're feeling good because they're talking more, and the dopamine in their brain is kicking in the gear. And you're able to do this by asking an open-ended question. When you don't ask an open-ended question, when you go right into pitching, or you ask a closed-ended question, you never give them a chance to talk. And therefore, if they don't talk, you're not listening. And listening has been, studies have shown it counts for over 40% of your job performance. So just by you being able to do that, you start triggering the first question, you start triggering the second question, and you start triggering the third question in particular.
Lisa, would you like to add to that?
I would love to. Absolutely. The foundation, I agree that we've got to make sure that we're asking questions, Keith, about open-ended, not giving one-word answers, yes, no, because that ends the conversation. The question of, do I like you? And in terms of emotional intelligence, that's the foundation of perception. And how do you want to be perceived by others? So me as an image consultant would say also, think about how you are presenting yourself. Think about how you are connecting with others. What do you know about that other person? How much research? They'll know about you ahead of time because they can find your products and services online, but it also behooves us as we're building relationships to learn about the person we're meeting with. So before we got on this podcast, Keith, I searched you. I wanted to know who you were. I wanted to know what, I knew what you were basically talking about, but I wanted to learn a little bit more about you so that I would be able to have a meaningful conversation. And when we're building, and in sales, and when we're building relationships in sales, it's so important to do what you can to research the person ahead of time and start conversations that are friendly, that are, so I saw online that you like golfing. So do I. Where do you golf? Where's your favorite course? Oh, and then the relaxation starts. It goes along that and beyond that too. It behooves us to dress the part, to think about what type of personality the person has. So we want to try to connect and be as astute as we can. And when you're thinking emotional intelligence, it's managing our emotions as well as our reaction and our response. What kind of a response do I want on the other side? And that could be, I want to negotiate, so I want to sound serious. It could be, I want to just develop a relationship. And so let me change my voice and be friendly and jovial and lighthearted. So
showering helps too a lot, especially
showering does help. You're absolutely right.
In fact, Keith, do they make like a fragrance? Like, does Calvin Klein have like Salesman by Calvin Klein that would help?
If they did, I'd be sitting on an island right now, and we'd all be okay. I'd be doing a podcast from there. You bring up something really interesting. I wrote an article recently about that. It was an article about connecting through common identities, which is what you're talking about. You do a little bit of research ahead of time, and you connect on a common identity, and it starts to build that relationship right out of the gate because you're able to reference something there. The article actually references a study that they did in England, up near Manchester. And now in England, up near Manchester, you have Manchester United, which is one of the worldwide brands of soccer, if you will, one of the most known brands in soccer, I should say. And they did this study out there, which was really fascinating. And they had a person laying on the ground, faking like they were injured or something like that. And people kept walking by, and they were just, they were counting them off and developing, a percentage of, they just kept walking by, and every now and then somebody would try to reach down and help the person. Then what they did is they put a Manchester United jersey on the person and put them on the ground. And all of a sudden, the percentage of people that helped went up dramatically, all because the people that were walking by identified with the person on a common identity of Manchester United. They were fans of the football club. So common identities work really well when trying to make connections is the point. And Lisa, you just brought it up there. It's so true. A little bit of research can go a long way into making that common identity and that connection that you're looking for.
Absolutely.
So you got to start by researching, understanding the person you're going to be selling to, and then you've got to establish a connection, a bond with that person. Are there any other ways in which an EQ-informed sales process will sort of unfold differently from a more traditional one?
Well, you think about it. If you draw in your mind an X, and on one side of the X is logic. And that's what salespeople typically do, especially in the world we're in. And on the other side of the X is emotion. There's only one point of intersection there. It's in the middle. It's where they cross. Now, if you think about what we're talking about, and you think about from a sales perspective, sales is nothing but probabilities. When you really think about it at the end of the day, sales is, when we think probabilities, if you have more in your pipeline, you have higher probabilities. You have probabilities around where you choose your time, where to spend your time, because you have more in the pipeline. If you're spending your time wisely, you're putting more into the pipeline as well. Now, when you think about the probability of closing opportunities, if you start to look at interfacing with people from an emotional intelligence perspective, as opposed to a traditional perspective, you just simply increase the intersection points of that X that I was referring to. All these little points of intersection now happen because you're on the same plane or the same wavelength as the other person. So now from a sales perspective, you've increased your probabilities, and that's what every single salesperson wants to do out there. They want to have higher closing rates. They want to have longer term customers. And it all relates to increasing probabilities along the way. Now, there are other places that you increase probabilities. Pipeline, you increase it when you have more opportunities in there, you have more choices. To get more into the pipeline, your messaging has to lock into things of around, now here we come back around to it, emotional value, tangible value, or insight or curiosity. When your message has something of those qualities, you up your probability of connecting to people again. Now, you notice I mentioned there in your prospecting message, when you have something of emotional value, it ups your probability of connecting, because people, back to people, are emotional beings. Again, back to emotion. Get on the same plane with them, your probabilities go up across the board all throughout the sales process if you do that early on.
You know, I've got to imagine there are people in the audience right now who are thinking, you know, I'm an introvert, I'm shy. A lot of technical people are, you know, I tend to approach things from a technical point of view. I'm not a natural born salesperson. I mean, and this kind of gets back to the likability point, but can anybody kind of learn to do this effectively?
100%, 100%. Adam Grant did a study. Adam Grant is a professor out of the University of Pennsylvania, and he wrote a lot of great books. One of his books is called Give and Take. It's phenomenal books on psychology, and he relates a lot of this to sales, if you will. Robert Cialdini does the same thing with his books, with influence and persuasion and all of that. But one of the studies that Adam Grant did was a study on exactly what you're talking about. It was a study around introverts and extroverts. And what he did is he drew the line over to how much, this is interesting, how much each one of these people made per hour. So I come from, again, I've been in industry for 30 years. I come from the era of Wall Street, New York, you know, boiler room, go, 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 extroverts, like dress for success, all of that. So I'm reading the study, and the introvert, sitting in their PJs, pecking away on the computer, doesn't want to get out there. That's the vision we all have of that person. That person made $120 an hour after Adam's study. So I was like, and I'm reading this study, and I kept going. I want to see, what is the extrovert? What are they? I'm thinking, God, it's got to be a lot. They only made $125 an hour in sales. Now, that's basically not even this. It's not even a Starbucks latte these days difference. So you can sit in your PJs and make just as much as just putting yourself out there. The study kept going on and on and on. And what Adam and his group uncovered was that there was a third category. And the third category is called an ambivert, A-M-B-I-V-E-R-T, an ambivert. That person is flexible, adaptable. They're chameleon-like. They identify the personalities of the people on the other end, and they adapt accordingly to those personalities. They don't try to push their personality, where the introvert pushes their personality in an introvert way, and the extrovert the same thing as far as in an extrovert way. The ambivert flexes every single time. That person made $208 an hour. And all it was, and you can be very intentional with this, is when you understand the personality of the other person as one example of the person on the other end, you just are intentional about flexing to that personality, not trying to force your own personality on top of them. And when you do that, the numbers show it, you're way more successful.
What happens when you get two ambiverts? Sorry, Lisa. What happens when you get two ambiverts on the phone? Like, do they just not talk?
They keep flexing, right? They keep
silence.
Silence. Yeah, dead silence. There you go. That's
Who's
great.
going first? You know, it helps when someone is that person, either most of the IT community got into IT and became MSP owners because they love tech, not because they love the art of selling, and because they love the idea of solving a problem. And they're like, oh, I can make some money at this. Let me now help somebody. Oh, I can help that person. And then it grows. So most, not everybody, but most IT business owners are actually introverts, and they learn to become that ambivert. And they do that by learning some strategies of connection. and they force themselves to, and most of them will say, I don't love this, but I know I have to do it. And so for an ambivert, a best solution is to really understand who they are as a personality, understand and get some information of who they're going to be presenting to, and having a process that will help guide them along in terms of questions to ask, understanding industries. It helps if you are an introvert selling to a particular and becoming an expert in a particular industry. And that way you learn their lingo, you learn their nuances, you learn who, like, so my MSP specializes in law firms. So I know that it's the managing partner. I know that there's specialty software. I know that there's depositions. And so I'm able to connect with attorneys because I'm very comfortable with their language, with what they're experiencing. So I take that emotional intelligence and I think, okay, how do I need to react to an attorney? Most of them are hard driving. Give me the information. I've got to be in court in an hour. What do I need? Here you go. And so I've adapted. So it might be easier, as a suggestion to everybody, to think about specializing in particular industries. So you become that expert, the language becomes comfortable for you and makes that sales process a little bit more, I wouldn't say everyone's predictable, but more predictable, because you'll know a lot and be able to anticipate a lot of the objections and questions you're going to get. And you're right, Keith, it's marketing and sales is a numbers game. The more prospects you have to go after to pitch, the better off you are. And the more you can practice this whole process.
Yeah, this is interesting you say that, because you're absolutely right. I was on site 2 weeks ago doing a believe it or not, an on-site workshop for an MSP, and it was incredible. It was like, wow. And when I told that story around Adam Grant and the study, you could see the collective sigh in the room from people, because it was a collective sigh of relief that, wow, it's okay that I'm this way. It's okay. And I still can be really successful. Because what you said is absolutely true. They come from the technology space. They're so good at it, but yet they think they have to turn into an extrovert. They think, and it's the furthest from the truth.
Oh, that's why I know this industry so well. I've been in it for 2 decades. Absolutely.
Exactly. That's exactly what in a sigh of relief, it was, you could sense it in the air. It was like, wow, thank you. No, I said, don't thank me, thank Adam Grant for doing that study, right?
You know, Keith, some of this goes back to conversations we had years ago on separate matters, but there is what you communicate and how you communicate. And so once upon a time, we were talking about how younger salespeople in particular are maybe leaning on text too much as opposed to some of the older sales techniques. I'm wondering how understanding the right use of the phone and Zoom these days and in-person meetings and text, how all that kind of factors into sales EQ.
Oh, big time. And we've written multiple books on all of this, by the way. And one of the biggest programs that I've done over the last 2 years has been a program on virtual selling. And the core of virtual selling is not the notion of just selling over a Zoom meeting per se. There's different nuances. Obviously, you don't have all of your senses. I mean, I can go on and on. But the core of that program talks about how you need to take an omni-channel approach to all of your different communications that you're having with people out there right now. When I say omni-channel approach, I mean text, I mean social media, email, phone, snail mail, you name it. You have to deploy all of these different mechanisms in order to, now here's the key, connect with people with how they want you to connect with them. Now, what happens is we get so comfortable in maybe one way or the other, text or just email, that we keep putting that out there. And our probabilities aren't great of connecting to people because they may want us to respond or try to connect with them through the phone. They may want us to respond or try to connect with them through social media. They may want us to use a video message to connect with them. But if we don't deploy all of those different mechanisms, we keep missing chances of connecting to them. So it's incumbent upon us to flex and be that ambivert with our different communication methods. And when we do so, we connect with them on an emotional level because they're happier that way. I poll like that in all these workshops that I do, I poll people, and it's amazing. Even in virtual workshops, I'll say something like, how many people prefer to be communicated with by the phone? And I'll get people raising their hand. How many like text? I'll get this. How many people like email? And everybody's different. And my point is, the world is like that. So if everybody's different, that means you have to put yourself out there through all these different channels. And when you do so, your probabilities go up that you're connecting with more people. Numbers game, Lisa just said it again. When you have greater numbers, you connect with more people, you have greater chances at opportunities, you have greater chances at opportunities, you get more proposals out there, you get more proposals out there, you close more business. It's a simple equation.
I agree that you have to be all over the place to gain your audience. I do want to make a case, and I wonder how you feel about it, Keith, with phones. And I feel like I have a specific phone skills training, and I'm actually delivering one next week to an MSP because they keep burning leads because they don't have a process. They don't sound interested. And I feel like that's a first impression of your business. And so while we are focused on social media and getting out there and connecting, I so agree with that, Keith. And I don't know if it makes me a little bit traditional in this way or a little bit old school, but you can't, I feel like we're missing an opportunity with the phones, and it's still a critical component to building rapport and relationships because they hear your voice. They hear that's human primal experience with you. And so I continue to make that case, man. I know we're on social media, and I know that, the younger generation are texting, and my daughter had to make a phone call today to a college that she's applying to. It wasn't an easy process. I had to walk her through the whole thing. So, and then she's going to be the future workforce. So, and it's very interesting. Yeah.
You are preaching to the choir, sister. Let me just put it that way, okay? We wrote a whole book on this. It's called Fanatical Prospecting, worldwide bestseller, multiple languages. We believe this firmly. Omnichannel approach, but at the center of it, the phone. It's at everybody's hip. Everybody has it.
Right.
And when you do that, and generationally, you have to start teaching some of our newer generations, these are the techniques to use the phone. And when you use the phone, you have to be simple, it has to be direct, and you have to be right, you have to be right to the point. And when you do that, you build confidence in using the phone. So what we talk about is an easy 5-step framework that helps people build that confidence, and it's really simple. I'll give you an example. The first step in this framework is you get somebody's attention. Now, people overcomplicate this step. And think about getting on the phone. They think, oh, how do I get somebody's attention? Let me think through all of this. What techniques and tactics? No. It's simple. How you get somebody's attention is their name. Mm-hmm. And here's how it works. Right. I was on the beach not too long ago when it was warm, and I'm sitting there, and my kids aren't around. My kids are older. They're not even at the beach. And I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden I hear, "Hey, Dad." And I, as well as 20 other people, turn their head. Now, my kids weren't even there, but we all turned our head. Why? Because the name Dad got my attention. So when you teach people this really basic, elementary, simple thing, then you get them into the flow of, here's how you make the phone call. It gives them the confidence to go out there and do that even more. And confidence is a transferable emotion. People can pick up on, you walk into a room and you can pick up on somebody that's confident in the room from a mile away. You just know they're confident. You can do that with the phone call too. They know you're confident, and people want to be around people that are confident people. We do not want to be around people that are desperate. So I couldn't agree with you more. The phone is your ability to get that and transfer that emotion across in a confident way, but you have to teach people a simple framework to actually do the phone call. So we do that all the time. We teach them that framework, and we have a part of that framework around messaging, and we have some psychology examples behind how the messaging can connect with people. And then all they do is they go and they do it. And when they do it, they're amazed, and they're like, this is magic. I mean, it's not magic. This is how you make a phone call.
A skill that obviously lots of people don't have anymore, right? Phone etiquette is not really taught. Like when I was younger, it was taught by parents. Like your parents would teach you if somebody calls, here's how you answer the phone, even though just the basics, you know. But now that's something that's really taught, as you've discovered, Lisa.
So my phone skills training came to be because 10 years ago, I'll never forget this day or the date. And it was 10 years ago, we lost a client. My MSP lost a client. And there were a couple of things that our service team did. But the reason that they decided to finally leave, and the buyer said, because every time I call, you make me feel as if you have no idea who I am. And I said, oh my God. My team has the best tech skills, right? You talked about that, Keith. My team had the best tech skills. My team has the best features and benefits around, certifications, you name it. And we've got press releases and but wait a minute. I wasn't focusing on that relationship and really honing in on the importance of the front line, which are your phones. That's a first impression. So ever since then, and then I started to, I created this training for my internal team. And then I realized, well, let me take this to the road. And so now I train other MSPs, but I was like, oh my God, after we had that experience. So you're absolutely, Matt, back in the day, that was our mode of communication, were the phones. But since evolution has happened in texting and social media and Snapchatting and your one-word answers, and so so to teach it back is such a critical component to relationship building and that emotional connection that we're talking about today.
Yeah, and you hit the nail on the head by using the word component. It is a component of our world today. The reality of our world today is that all these things exist. So we can't ignore these other things, but yet we have to incorporate them all together. So the phone does matter, text does matter. In certain situations and in combination, it all matters.
Right.
Well, and what's old is new again. So Keith, are you starting to see carrier pigeons as a more common form of communication these days?
I got a whole army of them sitting back. No, but you bring up something really interesting. I tell people, if you look at omni-channel communication, I mentioned it earlier, snail mail is an important component of that. When you write a handwritten note to somebody, think about that emotional connection that you get. And here's what happens. It goes back to when we were younger. The first piece of mail that we would open up was that birthday card from grandma, handwritten on the outside. So when you handwrite a note and send it off, it's the first piece of mail somebody opens up because they know that some love went into that. They know some meaning went into that. That emotional connection then gets cemented. And here's the thing, and I'm certain this is the case with Lisa's business. I'm certain it is. In that when you have that emotional connection, people will pay the rates and the margins that you are offering because of the value you offer. They'll pay more sometimes for that relationship. They will every single time because they want that peace of mind. They know that peace of mind is happening because of the people and the connections, not so much the technology, and especially in the MSP world and in the technology world. Everything is blurred. That, Charlie Brown's teacher syndrome, everything is blurred. And you can go out to anybody and everybody and kind of get the same technology. What's the differentiator there? The relationship.
Absolutely. It's a fascinating conversation, Keith. And unfortunately, we're out of time, but we could talk about this forever. And I'm sure you've piqued everyone's interest to learn a lot more about this and to work on kind of crafting and honing their sales processes to be more successful. So you mentioned a lot of books. Where can people find these books, and where else can people go to learn more about you, this process, and get in touch with you and all that stuff?
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, so they can go simply to salesgravy.com, just exactly as it sounds, salesgravy.com. All these books are up on Amazon: Fanatical Prospecting, Sales EQ, Objections, Inked, Virtual Selling, and there's many, many more. They're all up there on Amazon. Just search Sales Gravy or search our founder, Jeb Blunt. They're all up there.
If you could recommend one of the books to get started with, which would be the one you'd be like, this is where you want to dive in?
Well, considering that pipeline will solve all things, I would start with Fanatical Prospecting, because prospecting will solve the pipeline issue. So when you have a robust pipeline, you go. So I would start absolutely there.
That's what I would have suggested too. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Great book.
Awesome. Well, very good. Thank you, Keith, so much for being on. It was a great discussion, and hopefully we'll get you back down the road to talk about some of these other topics, maybe even in more depth. So
yeah,
with that,
do.
yeah, awesome. With that, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, Lisa Shorr will be joining us on the other side for a little bit of fun and to wrap up the show. You won't want to miss it. Stick around. We'll be right back. And we are back now with part 3 of ChannelPro Weekly. What an amazing interview between with Keith Lubner and Lisa Shorr. I mean, I just should have just let them take it and go with it, and she should have just interviewed him the whole time. It was fantastic. Richie, you got any takeaways from that?
No, I mean, I really want to get Lisa's takeaways. All I'll say is I'm trying to remember what the term is in Malcolm Gladwell's book, about viral phenomena. I think it's the connector is the person who knows people and connects them. I'm feeling pretty good about connecting Lisa and Keith, because they are very simpatico in a lot of ways, and they hadn't actually met before. And you can see they think alike in a lot of ways.
Absolutely do. Lisa, please, any takeaways you want to highlight from that?
Oh, I loved the conversation. It was a perfect match for sure. I think the biggest takeaway for everybody is to understand that we are not in the sales of the features and benefits game. We are in the relationship game, and people buy from people that they know, like, and trust. So in the MSP sphere, we're a bunch of we're in the sea of sameness here. Like, we all offer the same products, services, you name it. How do we differentiate ourselves? Part of that is the process of thinking about and incorporating emotional intelligence. And that's how do we manage our emotions internally, as well as in a group setting, so that we can get the reaction and the impact that we want. And that's the key, is to think about, when you're selling, what's your goal? Having that goal. What do I want the client or the prospect to do? And how do I need to act, speak, dress, think, and communicate so that I'm connecting with them? I think that's a big thing that Keith and I have in common, is that emotional connection. And that's critical to the sales process, the negotiation process, all of that. So important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Very, very true. And I have one takeaway that I'd like to highlight. It was kind of a note to myself, is that Lisa has a lot of lawyer friends. Never take her to court. I
got connections.
She's got connections there. Not a person I want to get into a long legal battle with. That is for sure. So awesome stuff. At least I know we're kind of coming up to the end of time that you had with us. So why don't we go ahead and say goodbye to you? But first, tell us, for those who want well, first of all, did you have fun?
I love it. Thanks for having me on again. And I'm going to put a plug out there to invite me again. So I'm already saying it. So now the whole world knows it. So
I'm glad you came on. I'm glad you had a good time. You're always welcome back anytime, of course. For those who want to maybe learn more about Shorr Success, learn more about your MSP, get in touch with you, connect with you on a logical or emotional level, where can they find you?
You can find me all over the social channels. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Facebook. You can shorrsuccess.com is my website. Right on my website is a calendar link, so you can schedule some time to meet with me, to talk to me. If you want to talk further about emotional intelligence and turning your whole team into brand building rock stars, and how do we polish them, I'm happy to talk. One other website I want to quickly shout out is I also have an online class for MSPs to build their brand if they want to do some training on demand with Lisa Shorr. And it's msp.shorrsuccess.com/personal brand. So find me there. I would love that. I'd love to have the conversation. And thank
Awesome.
you guys
Make sure we
again
put a
so
link
much.
to that in the show notes as well. So that way it's easy for people to find. And a big thanks to Lisa Shorr. And we'll go ahead and say goodbye to her. Thank you so much, Lisa,
Awesome.
for being on.
Take care, everybody.
Take care. All right, Rich, we're going to go on here to the end of the show. We've got things that have happened over the last week that people might want to know about. I guess we can't play any games like 5 questions unless I'm just going to like pick your brain, which I guess I could do, but it's been, we've gone through a lot. Why don't we just let everybody go and we'll pick up with some fun stuff next week. But first, tell us what we might have missed and what might be coming up down the road.
Well, you know, a great way and a great place to catch up on stuff you might have missed is to go to ChannelPro's In Case You Missed It column, which appears on ChannelProNetwork.com every Friday. It's written by our own James Gaskin. This week, he's going to tell you a little bit about the updates to the Acronis CyberFit Partner Program that were introduced this week. There is a new cloud print management vendor on Pax8's line card. ConnectWise introduced a new virtual community for its partners. And then I won't get into the details, but James has got a kind of sort of Weekend at Bernie's story involving somebody in Ireland, and you got to check it out. It's very interesting. In terms of what's coming up next week, actually, not a whole lot. There are some events happening next week, not a whole lot of them that will be super relevant to the folks in our audience here. There's some product news as well, but it's all under embargo right now. I can't talk about it. So you're going to have to tune in to Channel Pro Weekly again next week to find out.
Lots of surprises in store, I'm sure. So everybody make sure you come back next week. But in the meantime, where can you learn about all that stuff he's alluding to as it happens? ChannelProNetwork.com is where you need to go. Point your web browser there each and every day. There you'll find the latest news that we're talking about, articles, great blog entries from folks like Lisa Shorr, who will help you with your business, all kinds of good stuff. There's resources, there's white papers. There is all kinds of things to make your business better and to keep you on top of what's going on in the industry. ChannelProNetwork.com. That's where you need to be. And of course, subscribe to Channel Pro Weekly anywhere podcasts are found, the Apples, the Googles, the Spotifys, the Stitchers. We're pretty much everywhere. So make sure you throw us on your phone and take us along for the ride, no matter where you're going, and have us in your ear, speaking to your brain while you're doing other things. And of course, if you like to watch, we love having folks who want to watch. We have some interesting things we're going to be talking about as far as the YouTube channel is concerned in the near future that even Rich doesn't know about. How about that? He's going to be finding out some stuff too. But I do encourage you to subscribe to the YouTube channel and hit the bell so you get notifications and I don't know, all that other stuff that YouTube makes you do in order to do that as well. And please like the video and leave a comment, engage with us. That's where we want. We're on all the socials. Hit us up there. Channel Pro SMB on Twitter. We're Channel Pro Network on Facebook. We're everywhere. Go to the website and hit us up on all those places as well. You will not regret it, I promise. And with that, big thanks to Keith Lubner for joining us and having that awesome discussion. A big thanks to Lisa Shorr for joining us as well. A big thank you to the people at Dayquil for coming up with something that could help a person like me get through a show like this while being completely congested. So thank you to the Dayquil people. And with that, we are going to say goodbye this week, but we'll see everybody in episode 213 next week. See you then.